Hi guys and welcome back. Today I'm working on this painting again. I showed you the line work phase in a video earlier, but today I'm going to show you the process of painting her. So this piece, I definitely took a lot more time to get it the way that I wanted it to be. Way more than I have for a really long time now, and there's a lot of things that I learned about slowing down and taking my time with watercolors as opposed to when I'm really fast and rushed. So today I'm going to be talking a bit about the differences between the two when I'm working in watercolors, as well as just the general watercolor process that went into this painting. But first I do want to give a really quick reminder that my free enamel pin gift to all of my $10 and up patrons is ending in less than 2 days if you're watching this when it launches. It ends on June 30th, so anyone who signed up by then for a $10 tier or up, whether you're international or in the US, you will get this free enamel pin sent to you. I'm really excited to give this little gift to my patrons. I deeply appreciate all of the support. So if you'd like to find out more about that, you can sign up or follow the link down in the description that will take you over to my Patreon. And I also have a full real-time video of this painting as well, so if you'd like to go see the breakdown of this in a little bit slower, I should say a much slower version, then that's also up there right now, so you can go check that out. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into this painting. Okay, so like I mentioned at the very beginning, I really took my time on this piece. It's been something that's been bugging me for a while now, where I've gotten into the mode of just rushing through each piece and trying to just burn through it. And it cuts a lot of the enjoyment out of the creation process of making paintings, but it also means that the end result just is not nearly as finessed as I would like it to be. And this is a habit that I've gone into from years of working this way, so I think it's going to take a while to really break that, as well as learn a new time management system to be able to really take my time on my pieces. But it is something that I think that I'm definitely getting better at and growing with, and I think it's something that a lot of us artists do struggle with. It's certainly something that when I was younger I could have learned from as well, where there's times where I would just rush through certain elements of a piece because I didn't really know how to draw them. So like the arms or the hands, I didn't really quite know the anatomy, so I would just try to get something down, rush through it, when really if I had just taken even 20 more minutes to find a suitable reference, it would have turned out a lot better. So I do think that this is a bit of a lifelong issue that I've had, and it is an issue that I think a lot of us struggle with. And honestly, a lot of times I think that artists swing the other way too, where maybe we spend too much time really slowing ourselves down and being too timid about things. So there's always something that we can improve on as far as the pacing of our pieces, I think, and it's really just important to look at your own process and figure out where you really are at the scale. Where are you getting your most benefit, and where are you struggling with the most when it comes time to actually pace out your pieces. So anyways, with this one, I tried to get back to how I used to enjoy doing line work, and I already talked about that in that video, but I did spend a lot more time just getting the line weight the way that I wanted it to and being really careful about the details. And when it came time to paint it, I got really nervous actually about painting the background. So I have this color comp, it's a digital one, which I use to figure out where the colors would be. And I hesitate to use purely digital color comps for watercolors because they have such richer colors and darker colors available, and everything can be really smooth and glossy looking. And when it comes time to actually creating it in watercolors, the color range is a lot more narrowed down, as well as the fact that as I'm working on a more completed thing, as opposed to something that I really quickly just slap some color down, I'm going to want to build up texture and different elements like that. And those are things that just aren't in my color comp. So anyways, I got a little distracted there. So with the color comp, I had the background where it was just this really smooth gradient, but I decided that I wanted to do it really textured, and I had gotten this new paint that was really granulating. It was, and I don't use it in this painting, but it was Cascade Green from Daniel Smith, and I thought for sure that was the color that I was going to use. So I had spent oh, I think it was almost a whole day just going through doing these really gritty, textured watercolor washes on full sheets to try to get the texture right, because this is something that I've really struggled with, is where I've done, say, a really small color comp to figure out what kind of texture and colors I want, and then I loved how the texture turned out when it was really small, but then when it came time to make it larger, I didn't get the scale right for the texture anymore. So I didn't want to spend all this time being really careful and thoughtful and precious with my line work, only to blow it on the line, or on the wash on the background, which is something that I have done countless times. So I spent a lot of time practicing getting this really textured background, and I'm really glad I did that because I learned a lot. I think I really developed my skill more, but ultimately none of those felt right for this piece, and it was just kind of scary because I had spent all this time and all this paper trying to get it, and knowing that on all of these it just didn't look the way I wanted it to. But there was a point where I just had to dive in and work on this piece. I had to let myself move on. And just the fact that I had allowed myself to spend that much time practicing it and testing things out was just a huge gift for myself, because that's something I would normally completely cut out of my process. So that was something that I learned, that I felt while I was still really nervous going into this final piece, especially since I didn't have something that I was like, yes, this is perfect, and I really figured it out. The fact that I had done a ton of these textures in the full scale, I felt a lot more equipped to be able to just handle issues with it as it arose as I was working on this final piece. So eventually I got the courage to actually paint the background and get the texture, and I'm really happy with how the texture did end up on this one. It's interesting that once it was the final version, I was able to get something that I really liked and I was happy with, and I could texture it the way that I want. I could control the texture that way that I want, I should say, but then it still allowed itself to be its own thing. I don't know, I definitely think that being more thoughtful and careful and slow with the process allowed me to be able to get that practice in and that assurance, but still let myself be spontaneous with the actual outcome. But there was just so much that I learned about pacing myself when it comes to watercolors with this painting. So just by virtue of being able to allow myself to spend time to practice, to give myself space to think it through, that just showed me so much about how I can handle watercolors moving forward, because they're so fast as a medium compared to other ones, say oils, that naturally take a lot longer to dry, allowing you to spend a lot more time on each layer and build up endless amounts of layers. With watercolors, it's kind of, you just have to like do it, and you have to make the layer, you have to make it fast if you want it to be really smooth, and there's just all of these things that you have to be able to just make it happen quickly. And I think that has really pushed me into this like frantic, rushed way of thinking about it. But really, with watercolors, with anything, yes, there are layers that I need to paint quickly to make sure that it gets it nice and smooth, but that doesn't mean that the process of creating the painting has to be really fast. So I was able to just take my time and think through different elements and be a lot more careful about the different ways that I was approaching, say, the shadows and the building up of the values to get to the shadows, and I was spending a lot more time thinking before I jumped into, say, glazing something so that it was darker. And that's something that took me a long time to learn, where I would get an idea in my head that it needed to be a certain way, and I would immediately jump on it and enact it, and then I would regret it because it ends up worse than the original. And this one, I was just in a much clearer mindset where I would think, okay, maybe, say, towards the end, I decided that her jeans, her legs needed a little bit more value gradation. So I decided that maybe I would start with a darker value near her butt and then fade it out towards her knees. But I sat on it for a little while. I worked on other areas of the painting while I thought about it, until I came to the conclusion that yes, it would really help with the balance of values and directing the eye where I wanted it to. And then I was able to address that and make it happen. And unrelated to pacing, but Because she's wearing entirely black, I needed to find another way to make sure that each element of her clothing had enough variation to stand out from each other while still being harmonious and grouped together. So I really utilized a lot of different type textures for each clothing item, and I had a lot of fun with that, about using the actual texture to tell more information. So for her pants, I had these really tiny brush strokes that almost had a grain to it like you would see in fabric. And for the t-shirt, I had almost a more traditional watercolor texture. And then for her boots and her long sleeve undershirt, I had a very smooth wash. And those differences in textures, I think, really helps each element have its own personality and distinction. And I do have this painting available as a print at my art shop. It's called Stop Beating. I loved working on it, and I'm really happy with the end result. I'm just really happy to offer her as a print. So if you are interested in that, there's a link down in the description that'll take you to my art shop. I also have her available in the original form as an original painting. And don't forget to check out my Patreon if you're interested in getting that free enamel pin for all of my $10 and up patrons. I am so incredibly grateful for all of my patrons over on Patreon, but yes, make sure to sign up if you'd like to get that free enamel pin by the end of this month. That's June 30th. So yeah, I'm really excited to send those out to you guys. And that's about it for today. So I'll be back next week with some more art video content, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you then.